A long time ago, on a comics page far, far away. Greetings and welcome to May the Panel Be With You, the Star Wars comic book show brought to you by the Punch-Up Entertainment Network. I am your humble host, Mike Ergoni, and joining me, as always, the Mimbam 4 to my Mimbam 5, it's John Campbell.
Yeah, that's right. We're kind of back to what if territory a little bit this week, aren't we?
I mean, yes, and also yes. There's no no.
Yeah. I mean, it's not as grandly stated as when we were doing the Infinities books, but no question, this is a real life what if, right? Because we're covering what could have been Star Wars 2 had things gone the way.
Kind of, right? We're covering an adaptation of what could have been Star Wars 2 in some strange alternate reality. Because, yes, we are covering the adaptation of a Splinter in the Mind's Eye. Splinter of the Mind's Eye. I don't know why I always jumble that.
Well, it's kind of an unwieldy title.
It absolutely is. And I don't exactly... I understand it, sort of, but it is very much a title that's just like, you gotta read into it to understand what it's actually referring to.
Right. It's a very, I mean, the fact that this, because Splinter of the Mind's Eye, written by Alan Dean Foster, who's, a well-respected science fiction writer, it's a very sci-fi novel title, right? Splinter of the Mind's Eye.
Yeah.
It sounds like an old Star Trek,
Specifically, we're talking today about issue number 1, which was released in December of 1995.
Yep.
It is an adaptation of a novel that came out way earlier than that, though. We're talking... Right? Yeah, it was right on the heels of the original Star Wars when it was released. The novel itself was published on April 1st, 1978. And... well, the hardcover came out in March of 78, and then the paperback... wow, that's a quick turnaround for a paperback, actually, now that I look at it.
Hey, man, they were just looking to sell copies then, right? It's just like, Star Wars is hot, hardcover, paperback, boom, baby!
Yeah, but to dig into the history of Splinter of the Mind's Eye a little bit, like you said, written by Alan Dean Foster, this was the same guy who wrote the novelization for the original Star Wars.
Despite the fact he didn't get credit for it.
He was not credited for it, and there's a whole... background kerfuffle that happened with him that we're maybe not going to tread in detail here, right. But there are plenty of sources you can find online. Alan Dean Foster's own words notwithstanding.
Because I was just talking about beforehand, I had this as a kid, my dad's old copy of this, of not Splinter of the Mind's Eye, of the novelization of the movie, that was Star Wars by George Lucas.
Yes. The original cover of that is... from George Lucas' Star Wars, from the Adventures of Luke Skywalker, as it was originally called, the novelization anyway.
Yeah, the novelization acted like, kind of like the movie does to a certain extent, it acted like this was in George Lucas's series of Luke Skywalker adventures.
Right. And obviously, like, when it was originally released, A New Hope wasn't even called Episode 4 A New Hope. That came a little bit later.
Yeah.
Once they were sure that it was going to be a huge success, there was this added layer of mystique thrown onto it. And part of that also came wrapped up in was Splinter of the Mind's Eye, which was written as a sequel story that, had the first movie not done well, could have been produced as a sequel to the original Star Wars very cheaply, was the stated intent.
It's a really interesting idea, was that Lucas really wanted to make this... He had an alternative plan to turn this into a franchise still. He was just dead set on more Star Wars. And so basically he was like, all right, if the big blockbuster version of it doesn't work, I'm going to spin this into the B-movie series now, basically.
Mm-hmm. And, I mean, the way this story plays out, you have a lot of the big epic space stuff stripped out. You have a lot of characters stripped out, and only the stuff that they knew they could get access to for a very cheap sequel in terms of like reusing props, reusing locations, using locations that could be very easily manipulated to be done on the cheap.
Yeah, it's very interesting to imagine that. Thank God none of this didn't happen and we got the Star Wars we got.
Sure.
But my God, it is so strange to think about a world where this was the sequel, because I will say, having read this, it's not great.
It's not, and obviously we're reading a comic book adaptation that is made 30 years later. More like 20, but
about 20 years later, yeah.
And it is being produced by Dark Horse Comics when they are just wringing everything they can out of the Star Wars license. We've got a bunch of familiar names on this book, not least of which is, bringing up the credits here, Terry Austin, who we've talked about a few times now, as the Star Wars guy at Dark Horse in the 90s.
Oh, yeah. That name is very familiar to me.
Yeah. Because, today, specifically, we're talking about Splinter of the Mind's Eye, #1 from Dark Horse Comics, though the version we read definitely has the Marvel logo on it.
I was going to say, I don't know what you're talking about. This is clearly published by the good folks at Marvel Comics, as all Star Wars has always been.
As all Star Wars has always been, of course, yes. To say otherwise is heresy.
And then you open up to the cover, into the credits page. There's a big old Disney logo in there too. So that means Disney signs off on everything in this, right? It's official canon.
Yeah, of course.
Well, I do know that was one thing the comic does try to do, is make this story jibe a little bit more with what the sequels. There's less, because the novel obviously was taken only from the first movie. So when I gather, the comic makes some changes to make it not actively contradict Empire and Jedi.
Yeah, here and there, and more specifically, that leans away from the Luke-Leia romance that is very obvious in the novel, and is definitely leaned away from in the book, but isn't not there.
Right. Well, and that's the thing where it's like, we now look at that and go, as we talked about this on the when we were doing the post Star Wars comics, now we look at it and go, but if you just had that movie, why wouldn't you lean into it? It's one of those things where you just go like, yeah, of course. You see that movie, there's much more of a setup for the Luke-Leia relationship than there's a little bit of the beginnings of a love triangle, but there's far more Luke and Leia in New Hope than Empires, where you get more of the Han and Leia stuff.
Absolutely. But yes, so Splinter of the Mind's Eye, #1, released December 1995. We have a fairly familiar creative team here, in that we've seen a lot of these names before. We will see them again as we cover more Dark Horse stuff.
Dutro,
We got Terry Austin as script, and did he also do inks? Yes, he did.
Script and ink. You don't see that credit too often.
No. Obviously, he's also responsible for the adaptation of this from Alan Dean Foster's original novel. We've got Chris Sprouse on pencils, Steve Dutro on letters, James Sinclair on colors, a Hugh Fleming covers. I will say something about this book. Beautiful covers.
Highlight of this by far. Stunning. And so nostalgic for me, because I don't know if him specifically, but at least in the style he's working in is what I remember every Star Wars novel and comic cover looking like at this time.
Yeah, this was like a guy that made his bones on Star Wars covers, and the images he's produced of like Prince Zizor and stuff are firmly burned into my mind.
That's what Zizor looks like to me. Yeah, these really detailed paintings that are just gorgeous. I would put up pretty much any of his stuff as art prints because they're gorgeous.
On that note, let's get to the cover of this issue #1 I've got right here. Right off the bat, two main characters, Luke and Leia, and then we've got a Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, R2-D2 and C-3PO in the background there.
I just love that in Lucas's mind of, if this doesn't go well, Ford's not coming back. We're losing one Harrison Ford.
In the research I was reading up on Splinter of the Mind's Eye specifically, the basically the catalog of things that Lucas handed to Alan Dean Foster as just like, okay, here's what needs to be in a sequel.
Right.
these actors
Yeah.
are contracted through multiple movies. Harrison
Right.
Ford is not, so there's no
Right.
guarantee we get him back.
Yeah. Right.
We have these sets, we have
Yeah.
these spaceship models, and these like outfits and weapons. That's what we got.
Yeah. I mean, which, like I said, I do love the commitment to, by hell or high water, this will be a franchise in George Lucas's mind. But yeah, you can feel that reading this. You can definitely feel where, like, I don't even need to see what that list is.
And it's interesting to compare that mentality to the burnout he would eventually feel by the time Return of the Jedi is coming out, right?
Isn't that interesting? Yeah, because it's like, this feels like a George Lucas who just is like, I want to make Star Wars forever. And then, pretty quickly, but he's like, let's fucking wrap this shit up. Seemed to be his attitude on Jedi. Because as we talked about, he was talking about doing like 6 movies initially. And then he's like, let's do 3. I'm dead, man. I come on. Kasdan, put a bow on this thing.
And look, I get it. Like, this property became so big, so fast, that the amount of pressure put on everyone involved by the time we're getting to a 3rd movie, let alone 3 more after that, was just it changed Hollywood forever, right? It changed movie making forever.
Well, and I agree with Francis Ford Coppola, one of Lucas's best friends, who talked about, like, Star Wars kind of cost us the filmmaker George Lucas because he had to go be a CEO of a corporation, basically. At a certain point, almost instantly after the first movie, he's no longer a filmmaker. He is the guy who owns Star Wars. And that's a totally different thing than being a writer-director.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, this is what this worked out, though, the way they hoped, which is the movie took off and was huge, and they can just use this as ancillary material. But it's like, great, because it was sort of a win-win, right? Either we have the beginnings of a sequel, or we have a novel to cash in on something that's already huge.
Yeah, so retroactively, this story is sort of set in between Empire and A New Hope, and at least where this comic is concerned, I believe it sets it like 2 years after the Battle of Yavin, which again doesn't make a ton of sense.
That would be like literally right before the beginning of Empire, right?
Right.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
I find it very interesting that our first piece of Star Wars expanded universe stuff is immediately retconned away.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, kind of perfect, right? Kind of a tone setter for what will be our entire experience as fans of this franchise. But yes, let's once again, gorgeous, the them standing in the swamp and the rain coming down on them, the crash ship behind them, and yes, a very concerned 3PO and R2 looking different ways.
Yeah, no, it's good stuff. The composition here is great. The lighting, all the little details, just perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. Art inside, I will say I am not as hot on.
We'll get into it. But yeah, Hugh Fleming, great job. We love you.
Incredible. No notes. 10 out of 10, Hugh Fleming.
But we got our credits page here, and then we get right into it. And
get right into it. And like I said, I'm not super hot on the art, but a little twinge of nostalgia, because I'm like, oh, I remember when Star Wars comics looked like this.
Yeah. And look, Chris Sprouse, I think, is already like head and shoulders above some of the like really wackadoo stuff we've been reading lately.
Unquestionably. No, this is like solid, if not amazing, right? Yeah. Like, everything looks like it should.
Perfectly serviceable. Yeah.
And we've spent enough time in the 70s and early 80s now that we're just like, man, if anything even just looks remotely like it does in the movies, fantastic.
I have found myself thinking, reading Star Wars comics since we've wrapped up our coverage of Empire Strikes Back, every time I see some piece of like slightly janky art, I'm just like, well, it's not Yoda's knees.
No, literally anything currently being published is light years beyond what we're used to now.
But we get into it, and it starts kind of right off the bat in terms of like, okay, strap in for some clunky narration. This is just the scratching the surface of it, but the time. Sometime just after the Rebel Alliance's destruction of the Imperial Death Star. The place. The Kirkarpus system. Right off the bat. That name is so cumbersome.
It's yeah. I was reading this last night, and I think every time they say it, I was like, Kirkarpus, right? Like I had to be like, right. That doesn't roll off the tongue in any stretch of the imagination.
Or even if it's like Circarpus, I don't know.
Yeah, Kirkarpus. Yeah.
I pronounced it Kirkarpus in my mind.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, it's all gobbledygook, so why not?
And it really doesn't help that they immediately abandoned that name for
Yeah.
the planet's name, which is Mimban.
Yep. Yep. But the order of the day: trouble.
Uh-oh. Because, yeah, right off the bat, we have Luke in his X-Wing and Leia in a Y-Wing, which I found interesting.
That is interesting, yeah. And that Y-Wing's in bad shape.
Leia, how bad's the damage?
By the way, I already feel like, I don't know if this is a typo or just bad writing, but shouldn't her line be, "It's not good, Luke"? How bad is the damage? It's no good, Luke. Shouldn't that be, "It's not good, Luke"?
I mean, I think she's saying it's no good as in, like, there's nothing I can do. It's no good. I can't fix it.
All right, yeah, that's fine. I've lost my starboard dorsal engine completely. How often do we see Leia pilot a ship?
Never.
No. Yeah. Thank you. I didn't want to definitive. I'm glad you just made that definitive because I'm like, I'm pretty sure, but I'm like, Gorgoni might know about the obscure novel where she. No, no, I've never.
I have occasionally seen her like grab the sticks in like I'm fairly certain she does it in an episode of Rebels.
That's different, right? Like that's a different thing where it's like, yeah, I'm gonna steer this thing briefly while that person, like, yeah, she could conceivably like keep the Falcon straight. But that's different than here. They seem to be flying. They've left a planet together, flying side by side. What?
She's been in the pilot seat of the Falcon a couple of times, but always that's when like Chewie and Han are needed while things are exploding in the background.
Yeah, she can like steer the ar, but it's like, well, we're talking about here. She's taken off with the intention of landing. She's on a long. Yeah, because it wouldn't make sense for her character. She is royalty. She is somebody who would be flown about as a diplomat, not. Right. And of course, we just get a 3PO's in here. Don't worry, folks. 3PO's in here going, oh dear.
Yeah. I will say, I don't want to diminish the competency of Leia by saying she wouldn't be able to fly a spacecraft. And it makes more sense her flying a Y-Wing than, say, an X-Wing. She's in a bomber, not a fighter.
True. Yeah, but actually, that actually further, it's like, I feel like if she was going to fly, she'd be in some kind of cruiser. I don't think she'd be in a military ship at all.
Yeah, I don't know. But maybe this is what they had left after the Battle of Yavin.
No, I mean, once again, we are dealing with, we've got X-Wings and Y-Wings, folks.
Yep, exactly.
On the page. All right.
In fact, there is a note that apparently the reason we jump in media res here is because originally Alan Dean Foster had written a scene where there is some kind of space battle that results in this damage, but Lucas said cut it out, would be too expensive.
Yeah. That's far too exciting, Alan. Can't do that. That sounds expensive. Yeah. No, I mean, you can really feel that. It is like, and I am just going like, whew, God, this movie would have stunk. I think this would have put the nail in the coffin of Star Wars if it had been, because I think there's a scenario where Star Wars does okay and they make this, not like Star Wars bombs, but where it's like, it's like, well, I got this other one we can do for cheap. And then that would have been the one where people would have been like, yeah, forget it.
Well, because that's how it was in Hollywood with sequels, right? Like, you make the sequel for way less money and hope that it kind of, like, makes a comparable amount to what the original did.
Not to, well, no, I'll go ahead and say, to plug our patron content. You can listen to, over on Patreon, Brendan Jones and I are watching through some Planet of the Apes movies right now.
Oh, that's a great example.
And we talk extensively about that, how that was because that movie was not to a Star Wars level, but close to like being an early like massive blockbuster, the '68 Planet of the Apes. And then it just became, we got to rinse and repeat, man. Get it out fast, get it out cheap, and you just see that franchise nosedive.
Oh, it gets to the point where like the masks don't even move when the actors inside the ape costumes are talking.
You start to see a thing where it's like the one guy in front has a pretty decent mask.
Yeah.
You just descends until you're like, I'm pretty sure that guy just had his face painted. No time, man.
That guy's got a burlap sack with like hair glued onto it over his head.
So this could have been the conquest of the Planet of the Apes of Star Wars, is what I'm saying. Yeah. So, all right. So Leia's in trouble. Luke is going to save her here.
Yeah, they're trying to make it to Kirkarpus 4, but they're going to have to land on Kirkarpus 5. Again,
No!
not Kirkarpus 5. That place is a shithole.
City Alpha 5 to bring in Wrath of Khan. Yeah.
Look,
But,
SETI Alpha 5 makes SETI Alpha 6 look like SETI Alpha 4.
I will say that right now, absolutely. So anyway, yeah, but so they get they're picking up a directional landing beacon at frequency 0461.
Yeah, so that is letting Leia know that like there's something to land on
Right.
Kirkarpus 5. Like,
Because
it's
they're
just
talking about-
Mimban. I'm just going to call it Mimban.
Mimban, yeah. But that's the thing. Is like Mimban is seemingly it's supposedly no one's there, but there's some kind of signal. So we're gonna keep going on like either it's an automated station, but then we're gonna get a lot of discussion of well, even if it's an automated station, somebody's got to be here for maintenance, so maybe there is some. Get ready for all that dialogue, folks.
Because that right off the bat, we have just bubbles and bubbles and bubbles of explanatory dialogue, even on this page, as we're like, okay, we can't make it to the place we're going to. We got to crash land on a planet that's closer by. Great.
Yeah.
But in order to establish that, we need, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 paragraphs of dialogue.
You know, if you're like me, as a more modern comics reader, and this is always a once again, see any show I do with Brandon Jones where we argue about comic books, and he loves old comic books. But I will say this is reminiscent of sometimes when I open an old Marvel book and when I see this much white space of bubbles and stuff, I'm like, okay, you know, because this is not what comics are built for to like run smoothly necessarily.
Well, and it's also, I'm going to be complaining a lot about the characterization of Luke and Leia in this book, because not only does it not really jive with the films, it also switches back and forth depending on what scene we're in. Because it'll always be someone is cautious and timid and someone is overly bold and reckless. And it's always one of those two, and it goes back and forth between the characters.
It goes back, and that's where the whole plot is built on that tension.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it is just like they have to keep switching it because that's all they've got. There's really no momentum to this plot other than the attitude with which these people are moving forward.
Right. So right off the bat, when we have Luke saying, "Princess, I'm cutting power to slow with you, but according to my info tapes, Mimban doesn't have any emergency standby stations, much less a repair station."
Yeah. Your data must be outdated. I'm picking up a directional landing beacon at frequency 0461. You're right, but there's still no list on either the Imperial or Alliance. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Leia is crash landing.
You know what would have been simple? Leia, I don't get any kind of, I don't think there's anything on that planet. Really, I have a beacon. I'm getting some kind of signal for a beacon down there. Leia, you're crashing. You know, like, There could have been one line, and then we're to the thing. But no.
Right. And then
controls.
Luke also going, "R2, activate the tracker. Keep all your sensory plugs in on the full power," as he's hit with some kind of weird force feedback.
Look at that gritted teeth. Oh, it's too loud, R2.
Yeah, because on the next page, okay, strap in for a lot of Luke thinking big chunks of dialogue at the reader.
Which actually, I will say, takes us right back into the warm embrace of 1970s comic book storytelling.
Look, if you yearned for that time Luke was thinking at himself while wandering around in a monastery before he killed a leopard, we're just right back in it.
Well, that's what's interesting about this is sometimes we do this on the show where we jump forward going, let's get more modern. And then I open this and going, it's the same shit we do every week.
And look, it maybe speaks to the fact that this is an adaptation of a novel, but it reads as a lazy adaptation of a novel that's just excising chunks of writing from that novel and sticking it into characters' heads rather than trying to communicate those thoughts via action and art context.
I mean, this comic has to be some kind of cash grab, obviously, right? Because there was no impetus to adapt an 18-year-old novel at this point other than like, hey, we can get some more Star Wars issues out of this thing.
And look, I'm perfectly willing to say, hey, let's adapt an old thing, try to freshen it up a little bit, and maybe we can make some money off of that.
That second half of it, though, is the key that they don't do.
Freshening it up, yeah.
Because it's like a lot of the other adaptations they were doing was of modern Star. They're doing the Thrawn trilogy. when the Thrawn trilogy is coming out. This is them going, what's back here? What's what's in this barrel? I found an old box of Star Wars shit. Hey, we haven't done this. Yeah,
because like,
but yeah, God, this whole thing where they're crashing. He's on the next page here where he's going, something pushing at my mind, a stirring in the force emanating from Mimban below. Suddenly we switch to calling it Mimban right now.
yes.
Gotta relax, let it flow through me the way Obi-Wan taught me.
So let's talk about Mimban for a second.
Yeah.
Do you know that planet name?
It does sound familiar to me, yes.
Now,
I don't know from what, though, but I have heard that name before.
of the Star Wars movies made in the Disney era, which is your favorite, John?
Oh, what, Solo?
Yeah. The mud planet in which, like, Solo, during his Imperial, like,
Mimban?
soldier phase, that's Mimban.
Nice.
That planet has been brought back a few times, so this planet
That
has
would
not
be-
been lost to Star Wars lore.
That would be why I know it, because I have seen that movie many a time.
Yep. They never actually... I think they maybe say the name of the planet once in the actual movie.
Yeah.
But all the action figures have, like, Mud Trooper Mimban.
Yeah. Great fucking sequence, too. I love the dirty, nasty battle that we see in that.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Okay, so that's where they're crashing here, which is, as shown here, basically just a big mud planet.
Yeah, I mean, it's Dagobah before Dagobah, right? Like,
Right,
it was
yeah. No,
written
yeah,
to
that
be a mist-shrouded swamp planet that we could definitely fill the set with smoke machines and not have the background show up.
Yep. Oh, boy, though. Don't you hate it when you run into a Scrouch field?
Now, who's saying Scrouch there?
It looks like it's R2, right?
It's Scritchow, I think, actually.
Yeah, Scritchow!
And yeah, because both the Y-Wing and the X-Wing are getting hit by wild lightning as they're making their entrance into Mimban.
Mm-hmm. And it looks like that word bubble is coming from R2-D2.
So maybe R2's reacting to the electricity. He's a droid.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's meant to be kind of like the sound when he gets hit in New Hope. He makes like a... It's not a Scritchow necessarily, but...
Well, look, maybe his weather sensors.
There is an R2 pain sound.
Okay. So, now while crash landing, Luke says/thinks this.
Yeah.
I've lost Leia. All my instruments are scrambled. R2, I know the tracker isn't functioning now, but I should show us Leia's precise location before the anomaly knocked out our systems. I'll take us in an exact pursuit course, and if we're lucky, we won't land on the opposite side of the planet from her and 3PO if we're lucky enough to be in one piece.
Man. That is dense. That is dense, sir.
And for those of us watching along on YouTube, you can see that, like, over these two bottom panels, we have Luke kind of with the anime speed lines coming at him. He's coming down, him talking to R2, I guess, R2's over his shoulder there. And then the second panel, I'll take us in on an exact pursuit course, is all his internal monologue.
You're telling me you can't... Yeah, which I don't fully understand, is why is he thinking that but saying the other part? Both seem like,
It's arbitrary.
Anyway. Yeah, we've seen that before. But also, how about us, once again, I'm just going to be here to condense dialogue. R2, our instruments are scrambled. I'm going to try to land this thing as close to Leia's last known location.
Boom.
One bubble. Because you don't need any of... Well, and the other thing is, this is bad Star Wars. This is when people mock Star Wars, this is what they think Star Wars is. Because it can get gobbledygook, blah, blah, blah. It's like Star Wars at its best, though, like when Kasdan's writing it, and people who really know, is bam, 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 smart, characters being quippy and, right, like... and Luke can be earnest without being like, blah, 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 just like...
Well, it's Luke written as, like, serialized episodic space hero, right? And we're going to get a lot of that dialogue from him in this book.
I mean, this does feel more like, Flash Gordon-y. I'll take us in an exact pursuit course. And if we're lucky, we won't land on the opposite side of the planet.
And if we're lucky, Ming will never know we were there.
Exactly. Well, because let's turn the page and go, clouds obscuring vision, sheets of rain, lightning. Better activate repulsors before we locate the ground the hard way. Switching off engines, going in on full glide, just like my old skyhopper back home.
It's literally all one thought bubble from Luke
Yeah.
in the first
Yeah.
panel, and it's just like, oh, guys, we get it. He's crashing.
It takes, yeah. Why is him crashing this X-wing like 6 panels and lots of dialogue?
I will say, this page in particular, I think the art is really effective.
Really good?
Hard in on Luke's eyes, the X-wing crashing through trees, the trees coming at the windshield of the X-wing from the reverse shot, and then the black panel. I think that perfectly conveys what's happening.
Well, that would be. I agree. That's why I don't need any of these fucking words for him to be thinking. Right? Yeah, I mean, and I mean, the only dialogue I like here where he says, "I know R2, I'm applying full brakes. Give me." That's good. That's like actiony. I'm trying to do a thing, and the way it's broken up.
Yeah,
But
and I think the cut to black is very effective, and then the next page of just like Luke's bloodied face glued to the X-wing console there, I think that's good.
But then do we need him to say, "Gotta get out of here. This thing is not just so much scrap metal. It's certainly never fly again. Gotta locate the others."
No, we don't need that.
He's in a crash cockpit bloody. I'm gonna go ahead and assume he's gonna want to get out of there.
If anything, why not turn that into dialogue with R2 when he peels himself out and is just like, "You okay, R2? I'm okay, I think. How do you think the ship's doing?" Weep, weep. Oh, that bad, huh?
That's all fine. I'm not even sure where we are. Okay, great, yeah.
Yeah.
But I will say, immediately, crashed X-Wing, muddy planet, we're on Dagobah.
Sure, but it's interesting that this predates Dagobah, right?
Yeah. I mean, it makes you go like, that idea obviously stuck enough to Lucas that's like, oh yeah, we should keep that imagery.
Yeah, exactly. So like there are ideas that we'll see in this book that are clearly like excised and later used in Empire and maybe even some Jedi stuff. And it's interesting to see what's salvaged. And that's constantly been, to know that that's been a thing in Star Wars since the beginning, is this like recycling of material that has been discarded or otherwise made non-canon.
No wasted ideas ever in Star Wars, which is great. They're always willing to go, didn't we have a drawing that was kind of like that? And I mean, I think that's something that Favreau's gotten a lot of praise for in Mandalorian. He remember all the stuff that was like, there was a piece of McQuarrie art that they didn't use that was a cool design. I think I might have a place for it now, or
Well, and Filoni's been doing that in the Clone Wars and Rebels since the beginning as well.
Because number one, why wouldn't you work smarter, not harder on that kind of stuff, right? Like, I mean, it's all there anyway. Star Trek did the same thing too. It was like they tried to, when they were going to do Star Trek Phase 2, they wrote some episodes, and then when that didn't go, then when they did do Next Generation, they go, what were those plans? Maybe we could turn these into. Now some of those don't work. I'm also, because I can already see the comments now.
Well, and look, and Discovery's doubling down on some of that right now because they're doing the progenitors in the newest season.
I can't believe they're doing the progenitors. That's a whole thing. Don't even get me started, Gorgani. Okay, here's some more. Undaunted. A short while later, Luke, accompanied by R2-D2, which you can see because he's right there, sets out to find his friends. Oh yeah, right. Because 3PO. I was like, what friend? Oh, 3PO.
Well,
right, yeah.
Okay, Leia and workplace associate.
Casual acquaintance. Burdened by a survival pack of emergency rations and supplies, his father's lightsaber, and a heavy heart at what he fears he may find ahead. I don't think I need any of that.
Again, I would be shocked if this exact paragraph didn't exist in the novel.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what it feels like. It's like, but because you read that and then you look at this picture and go, other than the heavy heart part, that's exactly what I'm looking at. I can literally see the pack on his back, the lightsaber in his hand, R2's with him, and they're walking away.
Yep.
It's another thing where it's a thing that infuriates me in a lot of stuff where it's just like, do you know the strengths of your own medium?
Yeah. It's relying on the art to convey interiority is something that writers specifically struggle with a lot, I feel like, in comic books.
Oh yeah.
And it takes a very specific team of writer and artist to let the artist be the star of the character, right?
Absolutely. It's one of the biggest things because we have some friends who work, who are professional comics artists, and
Mhm.
one of the biggest things I hear from them is that people who don't know what they're doing, almost every, script early in someone's career is overwritten.
Yeah.
Always. You always think you need to, because when you're just writing the blank page of the script, you always go like, you're gonna have to do this. Same thing with screenplays too, right? It's
Sure.
always like,
Yeah.
I got to describe more, and you're like, "Nah, you really don't. Back it off. Sparse is always better when it comes to that stuff, especially when you're writing for a visual medium." All right, so Luke, and here's a great example of some weird pacing. Does this need to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 panels?
Well, yeah, if we want to fit in all of this interior monologue.
That's what I mean. It's like, it's literally Luke and R2 deciding what direction to go in, and it takes 5 panels to tell us that.
Don't forget they get startled by a monkey.
Oh God, right. Of course, that's where the real action is. But I gotta say, that was the biggest thing reading this last night. I almost fell asleep a couple times reading this last night because, just because there's just no momentum in the story. You're going like, should we go over there? Oh, that's an interesting thing to think about. Maybe we should consider this.
Well,
yeah, there's just not a lot of events occurring.
Let that be a lesson to our listeners/viewers. Do not read this comic while operating heavy machinery. It will only end in disaster.
That was my problem. I was also moving a forklift of wooden pallets at the time and reading this. Disaster. I lost my job on the shipping docks.
How will you feed your 6 children now?
I know, it's such a tough. It's really it's on the waterfront over here, man. It's like a Kazan movie in my apartment. It's in black and white for some reason in my life. I don't know.
So we do get some established plot points here that will not matter because the comic book will reestablish them later. But that is, they're hiking through this muddy world. They're trying to find Leia, and off in the ruins, Luke sees some creepy ruins.
You're talking about not creepy ruins. They're queer battlements.
This is where it really struck me as like, did Ron Howard write this in some kind of like pulp Conan the Barbarian novel when he has this there in the distance, those queer battlements, there's something about them that make me think those walls were never raised by human hands.
100%. That sounds like Conan. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, that is I cannot.
I think I said Ron Howard. I meant Robert Howard. I apologize.
Yeah, you did mean Robert Howard. Because for a second I was like, what did Ron Howard write like this? But director of Solo. Maybe that's why you had him on the. No. But yeah, I cannot. Once again, try to imagine Mark Hamill saying queer battlements. What?
And look, I support a queer battlement as much as the next man.
Battlements can have whatever identity they choose, but come on, man. That is their identity, those battlements, all right? Good for them that they are living with pride, but
jutting firmly up out of the swamps of Mimban.
It's interesting that queer battlements would have been a weird dated phrase in 1978. That does sound like 50s stuff, right? It's again like queer battlements, because you're
again, it sounds like Pulp Fiction writing.
Yeah, and that's the
not
thing, right?
The movie Pulp Fiction, but like Pulp Fiction, the genre.
Not nearly enough motherfuckers in this for it to be for that Pulp Fiction writing. Despite my curiosity, I'm glad our course takes us nowhere. Jesus, that's also great, Ryan. We're like, look over there, something weird. Thank God we're avoiding it. Incredible pacing of story, folks.
Yeah. And then suddenly, monkey.
But once again, it's because this book's pacing is all over the place. It has to first be, stay back, R2. There's something coming. Then monkey. There can't just be a thing that shows up. It has to be, hold on, wait, something's about to show up. Give me a second. There it is.
And then we hard cut to Leia. Yeah, I guess that was meant to be what happened to him? Yeah. I will say, I love this costume design for Leia. The black turtleneck with the gloves and the gun and the cargo pants, I think is just good.
One of our running things on the show is we love a badass Leia. We love and so stealth mission Leia, which is totally what this action figure would be called. 100% on board for it. Yeah. She looks like a James Bond character or something, Totally,
especially with the long-barreled gun.
Yeah, great. But still, because it's post-New Hope, the buns, right?
Well, yeah, look, Leia has the one hairstyle because we know no different.
Not at this point. And of course, she's stuck. She's in a real nightmare because if you're crash landing on a planet, with 3PO?
Oh, you're dead. You're dead.
Yeah. Because, I mean, literally, when we cut to this, here we go. Already, the bitching is starting.
Pardon me, Princess, but do you really think that R2 and Master Luke sat down safely in this awful place?
Yeah. And once again, it's the talk about the voices of her just going, of course they did. Luke's the best pilot we've got. And we've just got to be patient, and they'll be right along to collect us. I hope.
Yeah, this is where we start with
Arden of Flash Gordon.
Yeah. Whereas the Leia we know would be like seizing like any opportunity to try to figure out their way out. Leia's the one who grabs the gun and fires their way into the trash compactor. She is an action heroine. She is not someone who just waits around.
The only rescuing she needs in New Hope is just them to open that door. Once she's out of that cell, she's kicking ass. Yeah, the idea of just like, well, we'll just wait here for that awesome man to come and save us. That does sound like something 3PO might say. Also, do you scan anything, 3PO? I have questions about 3PO scanning abilities.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's a droid. He doesn't technically have eyes. He has like optical scanners. So
but
like
how much would he be designed to scan? How far would that range be? Not much.
I mean, he can detect mild amounts of sarcasm and the need for wit because he's a protocol droid.
Yeah, I mean, it is always that thing we talk about. Like, he's basically there because they need comic relief and stuff. But, like, why are they ever bringing him on, like, missions unless they're actively diplomatic in nature? Because he really is, like, a house droid, right? Like,
well, he's a droid who would be at, like, some kind of royal court or in the case of what we know, built by a little junkyard slave who isn't even old enough to shave, to quote Weird Al Yankovic.
Yeah, I never understood that decision, other than we just need to get 3PO in there. I mean, per canon, it is he built 3PO to help his mom in the market as a translator. Okay, that does make sense. But, like, it's just like but then, of course, he built the biggest fuss bot, like, oh dear, oh my.
Well, and the idea is that, like, he salvaged parts and they made for a neurotic droid. And,
yeah. Would have been great once again because that was retroactively said. If there was any payoff to Vader recognizing 3PO or anything, though, but no.
Well, because again, that's all retroactive, and like there are some like fill-in comics here and there that have like. I think there's a comic just recently where like Vader discovers 3PO's broken body on Cloud City.
There's lots of stuff like that because that is the benefit of the comics and the cartoons that we've talked about and stuff where they can retroactively go, here's stuff they should have addressed and other things.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, this is also why you don't want 3PO scanning. He goes, I don't see anything, but that doesn't mean there isn't anything.
Yeah.
Great.
And then there's an whoop, and he says, the princess, that hideous shriek, it's a hunger-crazed Endorian yak, and at the very least...
Lay it before it ingests me whole.
And Leia, to her credit, just turns and fires randomly at whatever's making noise.
Yep.
But
which does happen to be Luke Skywalker.
So, okay, then where did the whoop come from?
Oh, that's a good one. Well, that was Luke's reaction to seeing that monkey.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, because, by the way, what came of that monkey? Nothing.
Well, I mean, Luke specifically says, like, I ran into a thing and then it got scared off.
Yeah, that's what. But they ended that page like it's like, oh no, they're confronting something on the planet. Never mind, it also just ran away. It just at every turn, this refuses to be dramatically interesting.
Yeah. We're gonna have our first instance of Leia getting sucked into a mud pit here.
Oh yeah.
It will not be our last.
No. Hey man, that's a cheap effect.
Yeah, look, Hollywood has long since mastered random pits of quicksand.
Oh God, yeah. So yeah, but once again, here's another thing too, where they talk about like, did we land on the side of the planet that's the same side as? It seems like they landed right next to each other because I don't know how much time is passing, but it seems like 3PO and Leia are just getting out of their ship when Luke rolls up on them.
I mean, yeah. I mean, Luke even says, "Yes, I touched down a bit behind you."
Yeah, but once again, so much discussion earlier about like, oh God, I hope we're able to land on the same side of the planet as them. They're right there.
Yeah. Look, we got to get our two heroes together. They meet up pretty quickly. We learn a little bit about what they're even doing out here now, because Leia was on her way to a diplomatic mission on Karkarpus 4, where there's some kind of underground cell that she needs to meet up with in order to recruit them to the rebellion. Vague
rebel shit, right? Like, I don't know. Yeah, it doesn't really matter. And so, as he says, the only sizable creature we confronted took one look at us and ran like a spooked bantha.
Okay, here's a weird... I don't know. The sequence of motion on this page doesn't make any sense to me, because we have Luke coming up on Leia on the side of her crashed Y-Wing. She's kind of like kneeling on the side of the ship outside of the cockpit.
Right.
She then grabbed Luke's hand and helps him up onto the Y-Wing, I guess? Because in this bottom left panel, they're both standing back to back, but then Leia steps off the nose of the Y-Wing.
Yeah, why does she need to bring him up onto the Y-Wing if she then just immediately gets off of the Y-Wing herself, so she can, of course, once again get sucked into mud?
But specifically, we see that on the side that Luke was standing on, it's just solid ground. He's fine.
They just switch places.
Yeah, but
then she's thinking, yeah. Well, the planet is misogynistic. Let's be honest.
I see.
Like, it's a lady. Nom nom nom.
Master Luke, either the princess shrinking or the planet itself has decided to eat her.
Classic 3PO being massively unhelpful. Either the princess is shrinking. Shut the fuck up, you dumb droid. What are you talking about?
Yeah, so on the next page, we get a classic. Also, really like, oh, wow, 3PO's that strong where he can hold onto Luke's arm. And
we've brought this up in the comments before. You never see 3PO show any strength exerted hardly at all in this stuff. And then suddenly he's like, yeah, I'll take your hand, Luke. Also, always 3PO's arms are always like this. To see his arm fully outstretched, so weird.
Yeah, I mean, you can even... There's like a little joist in his interior of his elbow.
He is always caught on that. I mean, once again, we have the figures and stuff. We know what he looks like in great detail. You never see him go, let me reach for something.
Right. But no, here he is holding Luke's arm as Luke holds out a stick for Leia to pull, and they pull her up out of the muck.
Yep. And I mean, this is very jungle serial kind of stuff. Once again, that Lucas was inspired by. Right. This is more at home in Indiana Jones. In fact, it's happened a couple times in Indiana Jones.
Well, and also like is a little. They don't lean into it to an exploitative fashion, but definitely in a sleazier comic, this would be like the oh no, heroine's covered in mud. Whatever will I do?
Yeah. But come on, this is a classy affair.
But Leia does say, now then, won't I just be the perfect representative to the conference of Karpusian Underground? The only way they'll join the Rebel Alliance now is if they had an overabundance of scrub brushes to unload.
Didn't sound like Leia.
No.
Yeah. You'll do fine, princess. If anyone can talk the Karpusians. Oh, boy. Yeah, I love that they're just like, boy, you thought the planet name was unwieldy? Wait till you hear how you say the people who live there's name. Into uniting with us against the Empire, you can. Thanks for the pep talk, but right now I feel more like one of the mudmen of Rune than a politician. We get it, it's space.
Also, you're muddy.
Yeah. And also, I like the idea of, like, there'd be no scenario where she could clean herself off before that. She's just going to have to show up looking like this.
Probably.
Yeah. Anyway, but by day, they travel.
But here's the next page, and she's perfectly clean.
Yep.
We just spent a half a page complaining about how muddy she is, and then on the next page, well, that's fine. She got clean somehow. Don't worry about it.
I still wonder about the enormous volume of free energy we passed through that killed our instruments.
Oh,
jumping from sky to ship and back again. I've never seen anything like it.
That sound like Luke Skywalker to you?
That's classic Luke.
Yeah.
How about, once again, here I go. Oh, it's so weird that energy we flew through here. Something like that.
Too short, John. But how do we know about the bolts jumping back and forth?
You know, that thing that you saw, Leia. I've never even read of a natural phenomenon like that. Several colonized gas giants have bigger stars, but never with so much color.
Now, here's the thing. Remember this line that I've never even read of a natural phenomenon like that.
Oh, because
Remember that line.
Yeah, she's going to contradict it, yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Can I talk about also these captions? By day they travel, by night, sweet slumber.
And this is where the novel like leaned into the romance between these two a little bit.
Yeah.
Of the whole like sheltering each other in the cold of the jungle night.
Yeah, yeah. But I just love, oh, sweet slumber. What Shakespeare play have we wandered into? By night, sweet slumber embrace.
I think this book would be greatly improved if 3PO was given a donkey head. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
If he somehow slighted Puck, who works for Oberon of the fairy courts.
By the way, I also like this too. Don't worry, sir. R2 and I will stand watch while you sleep. R2 will stand watch. You are adding nothing. You will die instantly, if anything. There's not a creature alive with the bad taste to devour R2.
I do love their constant bickering.
Well, that is one of the first moments that feels on brand for any of these characters, actually.
Yeah. Like 3PO saying, like, no one would eat R2. He tastes too bad.
Yeah. Very funny. I hope one of the local carnivores chokes on you and breaks every one of your external sensors. That sound like I can hear Anthony Daniels saying that, you know. But yeah, here's the thing, the thought of, I may only be a stupid farm boy, but somehow I'll keep you from harm.
As he holds Leia in his arms.
Yeah. But then immediately isn't holding her when we cut to the wide because yuck.
Yeah. Again, this is 1995. We have the context now.
Yeah, so it's like they're going to lean into it a little bit because it's in the novel, but then they're going to immediately steer out of it too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So they sleep in the jungle, and then the next day they're moving again.
Turn the page, and this is one of those page turns where I'm like, Jesus God, there's so many words. You know, because it is sort of like, why don't I just read the novel at this point?
Because, yeah, we have Leia saying they're getting close to the beacon and that they're getting hungry, and then Luke saying, even if it's just an automated outpost, somebody has to maintain it, however infrequently. I saw some pretty big ruins near the palace where we crashed. Maybe the beacon belongs to a xeno-archaeological research post.
Boy, just nothing but unwieldy words in this thing. I mean, xeno-archaeological.
I do love the phrase xenoarchaeology because it is such a gobbledygook sci-fi terminology that I've seen used in so many sci-fi things that I love that I'm just like, oh yeah, a xenoarchaeologist. If anyone who isn't as big a nerd as me knows what that word means, I would be shocked.
No, but it is like, I did not bat an eye at it because, yes, it is tossed around in science fiction like nobody's business.
It means the archaeology of like alien stuff.
Right, yeah, xenoarchaeologist. And then once again, this dialogue. That's possible. A temporary scientific outpost would explain why the beacon isn't listed. There might even be a subspace planetary relay for contacting Sercarpus 4 when the science team is operating here. Just, my God. It's so boring. Why have you made Star Wars boring?
Yeah, again, the idea that, like, okay, maybe there's an outpost here, maybe we can use it to contact the outside world. Great, that's all good, but we don't need to get into all the litany of tiny details about...
And especially when the visuals are just them standing there going, do you think that could be the case? Yes, I think that might be. Oh, that's good that we discussed that further. Should we move on now? Yes, let's walk forward some more. Jeez.
And then 3PO with the, I thought it might be worth mentioning that this isn't a tree I'm pressing against. It appears to be a metal surface, and I believe the possibility, and then Leia cuts him off, it is metal.
It's a wall of some...
The fact that they're walking through the jungle and don't notice this fucking wall?
Yeah. I'm waiting for the line about the mists that have made them dumb. You know.
Well, especially when we find out that this is the exterior wall of a city. It's like, how do they not notice this? Okay, I guess it's a thick jungle. There's lots of mist, so we don't have to show the backgrounds and sets.
Yeah. Well, it's also one of those things, too, where it's like the way we're looking at Luke and Leia it's nothing but trees behind them, and then basically when we look at 3PO, the camera just turns the other way, and to the other side of them is a giant metal wall. They're like, oh, we were looking over there, that was our mistake.
It speaks to what a big frustration I have in comics, in which the characters don't know about anything that's off panel. So it's only when the panel shows it that the characters become aware of it.
Yeah. Not that I expect gratitude, but I hardly thought I'd be abandoned for my efforts. Me, Luke.
Oh boy, yeah. Because we turn a corner here, and what's this? The end of the wall is just, oh hey, there's a city here.
Like a couple feet from them is just, oh look, a massive city. Huh.
And we learn eventually that this is some kind of mining town. So the idea that like right outside this wall would be zero presence of the people coming and going from this place is wild to me.
Crazy. And then I find all of this dialogue insane. Thank the Force is an interesting line for Leia to say.
Yeah, the use of the Force as like a swear or an oath has always gone kind of back and forth throughout Star Wars, depending on who's writing it. Sometimes
the Force. Yeah. Because it's like, the Force isn't God to that. It's weird. Once again, and that some of that is just ubiquitous Star Wars. But then I really want to get into Luke saying, first we find a place to clean up, and then a proper restaurant. Yeah, it's so funny to me about Luke going, we just got to find a place to eat. Like, you got a burger joint around here?
You know Luke Skywalker, always thinking with his stomach.
Yeah. Ooh, R2, lubricants at last!
Oh boy, that line.
Yikes. I do not want to hear 3PO talking about lubricants ever.
So, okay, let's keep track of this a little bit. Right now, Leia's the timid one.
Yep, right, yeah. Because she's like, wait, Luke, don't just run in there. I know that you're going to find a fine restaurant. But also, I do have a question about this. They're looking at a totally empty town, and then all of a sudden there's stormtroopers coming right at them.
Yeah, because in a couple of pages we'll establish that this is the middle of the night, even though it's not drawn to look like that at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because 3PO... So, once again, there's no human figures, what they're looking at all. But then 3PO sees people in the distance that he, despite the fact he was just sensing for a good distance earlier, cannot recognize as stormtroopers.
Until Leia says as much.
Yeah. They're Imperial stormtroopers.
And look, I like a good dirty stormtrooper. I think that's a good look.
I also like stormtroopers casually having a conversation about, like, I'm just telling you, man. I don't know what they're serving at that restaurant, but I don't think it's real meat.
Look, just because you're allergic to it doesn't mean it's not real.
Yeah. And then where are they going? They're coming like right at them, and then they turn right in front of them, of course, without seeing them, which I believe because we know stormtroopers famously have horrible sight.
Terrible peripheral vision, yeah.
No.
So, but thankfully they also apparently have wax in their ears as Leia and Luke jaw at each other endlessly. As Luke says, they must be here without the Kirkarpusians' knowledge, or we'd have heard about it from their underground.
When the Kirkarpusians find out, boy, just try to get that in there as much as possible, too. They'll quit the Empire faster than a bureaucrat can recite regulations. Oof, Leia, that's a crickets in the audience for that one.
Yeah.
That's lame.
Look, we've already gone through the Clone Wars, and the bureaucracy has been swept aside by the new Imperial Order.
Yeah.
Give it a rest.
And now they say, be quiet, because here comes this bunch of Procher wearing mining suits. The Empire is digging something valuable out of this planet, and it doesn't want the Kirkarpusians to know.
Yeah. And then there's a big noise. 3PO says we're done for, but Leia says, hey, I know that sound.
Yeah. The Empire's energy mining here and uses some pretty big generators, too, judging by the racket. There's a word you hear in Star Wars. Turn off that racket!
I do say, and then here's where Leia completely invalidates her, having never heard of anything like what they encountered before, when she says, that accounts for the atmospheric disturbance that scrambled our instruments. I've read specifically she read about this,
Yeah.
that a ship has to be specifically insulated to pass through the area where an energy drill is operating.
Yep. 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 Oh boy.
Look, we don't need the information right up until we do.
Yeah. No, it's really. Yeah. God, this thing is. Boy, boy, boy. But the fallout materials. If Mimbin, and now we're back to calling it Mimbin, supports a native race, that kind of mining is illegal. Since when did such legal niceties start to matter to the Empire? Yeah, they make the laws, Luke. Like, the idea of Luke being like, wait a minute, the Empire is breaking the law. Great. Great stuff, man. We should write them a ticket, Leia.
Yeah. And again, we have this switch between Luke being the timid one now. Isn't that illegal? To Leia being like, who? The Empire doesn't give a shit about that.
But then we turn the page and he's once again going, I still want to find that restaurant because I got a hankering. I'll tell you that right now.
Look, you wouldn't like Luke when he's hangry.
Point taken, but right now my stomach is reminding me of more immediate concerns.
So Luke is the reckless one now as he's pushing forward looking for food, and they find their way to a supply depot because 3PO of all people says, shouldn't we have a second clothes change so we can have the action figures be different?
And then something you rarely see, and I don't know how possible this is, he shortens the length of the blade of his lightsaber, which I think is technically possible.
Mm-hmm.
But you just
on all of the like
rarely see it.
You rarely see it, but on all of the like incredible cross sections books or the like detailed schematics books, I've got a few of them. I mean, I don't know if you can see them, but I've got a few of them behind me on the shelf there.
Yeah. There is a blade like control. There is like a power control or whatever that can.
One of the dials is always listed as like blade length dial.
Yeah. But once again, you just never see it done. I can't think of anything where somebody does this in a movie.
And that was a thing that I saw in this book. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, that's something we don't see in the movies outside of like, oh, there are lightsabers of different lengths based on character size. Because obviously Yoda's lightsaber is shorter than everyone else's.
Or Ahsoka has one long one and one short one.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you can change the heat, right? Because they do that in Phantom Menace when he cranks up the heat to cut through the metal wall, right? Isn't that a thing?
Oh, there's like power control, there's length control, there's all sorts of little knobs.
You just rarely ever see anyone dialing in a lightsaber, though. It's pretty rare.
That's why I like it.
Yeah. But
it's unlikely that the Jedi Knights had any thought of these used as burglary tools, but since silence is of the essence, and he like cuts through the door with it.
One of the rare moments in this where I'm like, that's a pretty cool Star Wars scene that you don't see. All right, go on. Go ahead. The droids and I will keep watch. Once again, mainly R2. Odds are, they should just fucking turn off 3PO at this point. We know you can. Just shut him off because he's a detriment now.
Well, look, they send him out into the bog on the next page as we cut to spy action Luke and Leia.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Here we go. Talk about some more action figures to be made.
Mm-hmm.
Undercover Luke and Leia.
So now they're dressed as miners, is what they say.
Mm-hmm. You know what also would have been good things? Because the whole point is you better change your look because you're so well known. I don't know. Maybe Leia change your incredibly recognizable hairstyle.
Look, you can only take so much of the princess out of Leia.
A hairstyle, by the way, we know she immediately abandons in the next movie anyway, so...
So, okay. They are in an Imperial mining town. There are stormtroopers everywhere. All of their decisions up to this point are purely food-based as they're sneaking into this establishment.
How long have they been out there? Because they say that Luke had rations in his pack. So, like, how long have they been wandering? That they're, like, starving now?
I don't know. Because, Leia says, enough stalling, I'm starving. Now Leia is the reckless one.
Yeah, earlier that was Luke going like, I don't care if it's dangerous, we got to get food. And now he's going like, I don't know about this. She's like, shut up, I need to eat. What? And then we get just a real lame Mos Eisley Cantina knockoff.
Yeah, so we've got miners here of different species dressed in their miner costumes, and then we've got natives who are dressed in, like, faux Jedi robes, and then we've got these green people who are the, like... original inhabitants of Mimban.
Right. By the way, take a real quick look on this waiter on the right. Is he smoking? I don't think he is, but it looks like there's a cig coming out of his mouth.
Which character are you talking about?
The waiter on the left who's talking to the table with the pink guy on the edge of
Oh
the.
yeah, it does kind of look like
It
he's
looks
got a
like
little bit of cigarette.
he's got a little cigarette hanging out of his mouth, like Aykroyd in Ghostbusters.
Look, apparently he wanted some death sticks.
Yeah, he want to make some death sticks.
Look, Sleaze Bagano is
Yeah,
one of
my favorite Star Wars character.
Look, if that's where you're at, I always took you more of as a Jester Dexter kind of guy.
Oh well, I love Jester Dexter. Come on, he owned a '50s restaurant.
Or Dexter Jetster, sorry, other way around.
Jetster, yeah, that's it. Dexter Jetster, yeah. But yeah, the idea of a guy who in a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away somehow had an Earth 1950s nostalgia restaurant. I don't know.
Greasy apron and mustache and everything.
Oh God, that I do love that character for just like what? Yeah. So here they are wandering around, and they're gonna talk a lot, and
Yeah.
they're gonna talk a lot about how much money they have on them.
Well, because Luke's got some Imperial currency, but Leia's like, ugh, on a diplomatic mission, I would never carry that kind of stuff with me.
Yeah, what are you crazy? I could eat half a chow sow. Chow
Sure.
sow? Yeah. What is that?
Space cow.
Yeah, space cow. All right.
Next page, we get some Imperial degradation as Luke puts in some orders, and then we see that the Imperial miners are really being shitty to the natives as they just pour drinks on the floor and tell them to drink up.
He orders, by the way, Luke orders Commerkin steak, flank cut, and Utuwergs with the usual supplements.
Of course, with all the usual supplements.
That sounds disgusting. I don't even know what it is, but it sounds gross. Number
Don't
one, I
judge
don't want anything called supplements with the usual supplements.
Yeah, usual supplements. Salt, pepper.
Yeah, and then yeah, here you go. You've got this guy pouring liquid on the floor for the alien creature to lick up while he kicks him in the face. Jesus Christ.
Because remember, the Imperials are evil, John.
But there's like evil, and then there's just, I mean, it's a rare moment when I'm like, this is pretty far even for the Empire. Damn greenies ain't fit for labor. Too much sweat to kill. Ah.
And all the other Imperials are looking on smiling, so they're clearly into it.
Yeah, man. We're all horrible. I do think that's one of the things in modern Star Wars that I like a lot is just people who are caught up in the Empire. They're not like true believers. They're not sycophants. They're not psychos. They're just like, I work for the Empire because what am I going to do? Get killed? Or I need food? It's like, you think about that. There would be people who are just like, I just work here, man, and it's a horrible system.
If anything, it would be the vast majority, right?
Yeah.
But that's the point of shows like Andor and some of the sections of The Mandalorian are showing that, like, there are a lot of people who are just caught up in the system, but even those people are contributing to that system by not opposing it.
Right, absolutely. But that doesn't mean that they have to be sickos who are like getting off on the power of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. No, there's and then of course, now Luke is going, son of a bitch. It's like, you fucking idiot.
Yeah, now they have switched characters again, and Luke is the reckless one as he stands up and says, I can't stand by as those people are being treated like that.
I can't stand to see anything abused like that. Human, animal, or alien.
Though that maybe is a little telling on that alien ranked below animal there in Luke's dialogue.
It goes cats and dogs, green people.
Yeah. Not
the
great.
Empire, and then, the Empire isn't known for kindness towards non-allied Aborigines. Oh, interesting.
I mean, technically the correct word, because like an Aboriginal people is just like a local.
But we have a definition for that word, and it conjures up a very specific thing.
Yeah, and look, this isn't incorrect in terms of conjuring up that definition in terms of like the Aboriginal treatment by, let's just say it, Australians over the years, Australian government and settlement.
100%. Yeah, but weird to invoke it here.
Yeah. And look, maybe that speaks to the time in which this was written. If they're lifting that word specifically from like Alan Dean Foster's work in the 1970s. Look, that's a whole rabbit hole you can go down in terms of the history of the treatment of Aboriginal peoples in Australia. It's a fascinating and really disturbing subject. If you want to read up more about it, we're the wrong people to talk about it.
Yeah, you don't believe it or not, you don't come to Star Wars podcast for that info.
Right. But the fact that it's invoked here is, like you said,
Yeah, it
odd.
stands out, right? It does stand out. Well, meanwhile, it's chow time as the meal comes over here, and hey, not too bad.
And now we have a dramatic reversal in characters as Leia has a certified freak out when people are just looking at him.
I don't like the way that waiter keeps eyeing me. Do you think he suspects? Uh-oh. They do suspect. We've got to run for it. Because if there's one character in Star Wars we know flies off the handle at the slightest sign of trouble, it's Princess Leia. Oh boy, never keeps her cool.
The fact that, like, stone cold rebel leader Princess Leia Organa goes like, "Oh God, they looked at me weird. We gotta go now," and is shouting it.
This is a woman who just stood up to Grand Moff Tarkin right in the face and was like, "What's it to you, asshole?" Like, come on, man. This is character assassination of a character I love. I can't stand by.
The first
I can't in good conscience.
The first lines of dialogue we get from Leia are like, "Darth Vader, I should have recognized your stench."
Yeah, she's talking to the Dark Lord of the Sith. She's like, "Fuck you, asshole! You stink. You reek, buddy."
Her first lines to Tarkin is like, "I should have known you were holding Vader's leash."
Yeah, no, oh man, that's why we love her.
Yeah, no, but here she needs to get slapped. I hated this scene so much.
When this happened, I almost threw this comic to the ground. Like, what? What is this bullshit? No favors for you until I'm finished eating. We've got to play along here that you're a slave. And then she's even, the drawing of Leia holding her face like, oh my, I've been bitch slapped.
The idea that Leia has to be slapped into realizing, like, sense is so anathema to what I think of this character. And the idea that Luke would even jump to that plan is...
both characters are wildly out of character in this scene. Yeah, that makes no sense. Han maybe would he wouldn't slap her to make sense, but he might go, "This is how we're gonna play this."
Yeah, he would say, like, "Please roll with this," and then slap her.
Right. Yeah, that would be the thing. But not. Yeah, Leia never. Leia is not a character who ever needs sense. I mean, if anything, the criticism of Leia as a character is always that she was too cold about the destruction of Alderaan. She's not a character who's going to flip out. Oh, I do love the drawing of this guy going, "Is there some trouble I can assist you with?"
Yeah, this guy's an Imperial uniform filler if I've ever seen one.
Yeah.
Now, here's an interesting thought experiment. If the two characters and their reactions here were flipped, would it make sense?
It would make more sense. I still think it would still be either one of these characters flipping out this much. But Luke should be a little bit more of the, like, oh no.
He's the impetuous one of the two.
Right. Yeah. And he's also the one at this point, we're still just after New Hope. He's still the one inexperienced with being in a war, right? Like he would be the one who's like, oh God. But still, I don't think he would flip out this much. But it's more believable that she would slap him than the reverse.
Yeah, because on this next page we have this interaction where Luke is making up the story that Leia is a servant that he's bought, and he had to slap some sense into her, and apparently the barman has ID'd them as, like, not being from around here because Leia has no calluses on her hands.
Yeah. I have no idea. And he's just like, yeah, but I bought her as a hottie.
And then Leia's line here of, like, "You enjoyed that, didn't you?"
Once again, that's a line that would fit more of her saying that to Han Solo.
Yeah.
That's not the kind of... And meanwhile, though, hello, I'm an old lady who's got some stuff to say. Is it time for my exposition?
Oh, yeah. Look, Hala exposition is here. So we got this lady who rolls up on them after this exchange.
You look like you could use some info.
She's wearing some vaguely Jedi-ish robes as she comes in and says, "Oh, we've got a mutual friend that goes by the name of the Force." So yeah,
what I've done.
This is Hala, and over the next page, we get a lot of dialogue from her being like, the Force this, the Force that, we're both connected to the Force, look at what I can do, and as she moves the salt shaker across the table.
I like force this, force that. Well, because this is where you do get some of the, like, Lucas going, okay, there are certain things that would need to be in a sequel. And one of those is we need another older character who knows stuff about the Force. Of course, this will become Yoda's, but it is like, this feels like, okay, well, Luke is going to need some kind of mentor figure in the second movie.
Yeah, exactly.
This is not a well-written character by any stretch of the imagination.
No, because she's also a little bit Han Solo. She's like definitely an out for herself kind of character.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, I don't know. And also, yeah, real subtle with the maybe the Force.
Yeah. So Luke tries
Luke
to
kind of
cover.
like, lady, I don't know what kind of bullshit you're talking about.
And she's just like, oh, yeah, really? Okay, well, watch this as she moves the salt shaker.
And she also is like, I smell it all over you, pal.
Yeah. She calls herself a master of the Force. A master.
Yeah. Who is this? I mean, she's not a Jedi per se, right?
Well, and again, this is established in a time in which, like, we had no idea what the Jedi Knights even looked like. This is a character along the same vein of Don Juan Quixote, of like,
very much so.
Is this someone who had like vague Jedi training or just a crazy person? Coin flip.
Also, is this an exclamation of some sort? Stang!
I guess that's a curse word.
I've heard of that, yeah. Stang, you came from the rebel base on 7? What was it? No, it's
Karkarpus 4.
Oh yeah, it's just that. Look at how weird that looks.
Or that's the rebel base on, I guess it's 14?
Yeah, 14. Yeah, 14. Yeah. What?
Karkarpus 14? I guess there's lots of planets in this system.
Well, they didn't spend a lot. Yeah, they didn't spend a lot of time in this. They go, great. We'll just go to one system with a lot of planets, and then 1 through 80. You know, we'll be fine. You don't want to hang out with those guys on 48.
Bunch of weirdos and perverts out there.
The only government I recognize is my own. Oh, she's one of these people. I don't recognize the authority.
She's a sovereign citizen of the Force.
Yeah. If I wanted to sell out those rebels, I'd have done it long ago.
Oh, like the Empire doesn't know there'd be a world with rebels in the same system as them?
Yeah. Looks like you're stuck here. Hoo-hoo.
But yeah, so basically she says on this next page, they get into a whole conversation where it's like, okay, but you must have a way off this planet. She's like, maybe I do, maybe I don't. What's it to you?
You tell me. Then you'll have to help us steal a ship. Are you out of your mind, boy?
Yeah, and Leia does the old reverse psychology, being like, well, I guess if you can't do it.
Hold it now, wait a minute. The hell, I can't steal a ship.
There are certain risks involved and all. I'll help you steal your ship, boy and lady.
That's the best line, if anything, ever. Boy and accompanying lady.
But so she agrees to help them steal a ship to get off this planet on one condition. I'll sell you out if you don't help me, but if you do help me, we're going after something called the Kyber Crystal. Not spelled how you think it is.
Oh, spelled, by the way, so weird. Like, the idea that this is the first spelling of it is like Kyber.
It's not, though. We'll get into it.
Ooh.
So, Kyber Crystal, spelled in this book and adaptation as Kaiburr. Is based on something from the earlier drafts of Star Wars, which is Kyber Crystal, Kyber, which is how we know it is spelled today.
Of course.
So, eventually, we would establish that Kyber crystals is a kind of Force-sensitive crystal that the Jedi have used for generations to hone the Force powers and create lightsabers. Yeah? They would eventually be hijacked by the Empire to be used in the Death Star's creation, among other things.
See Rogue One.
the hearts of the strongest stars are made of kyber. Yada yada
Right.
yada.
Now, that's really not what we're dealing with here, though.
No. So, in earlier drafts of Star Wars and various sequels that George Lucas had written,
Right,
there was
yeah.
there was a MacGuffin called the Kyber crystal that needed to be seized for various reasons depending on the draft. This is a further derivation of that, and spelled differently for reasons I can't explain.
I don't. And the spelling is so silly. Kyber.
Again, maybe it's more of a phonetic spelling, so that, like, okay, we can't confuse people with Y's in the middle of words.
Throw people off the. How the hell do you say this? Yeah, for those who aren't watching this on YouTube, it's Kaiburr. Kyber.
So yeah, it's a phonetic spelling of it, I guess.
Yeah. And then, boy, turn the page and just blah, 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 blah.
Okay, so to sum up, there is too much.
But can I just say that I love that we get Sir Carpusian xenoarchaeologists.
Boy, that's...
That we get those words back to back is like, yes, we've officially achieved maximum gleep glop in this comic.
Maximum Gleep Glop is my sci-fi punk band name.
There you go, we are maximum gleep glop. Yeah,
So,
okay, but please summarize. Yeah.
To summarize, and that's basically summarizing this whole page that is just her explaining all of this.
Yeah.
On this planet, there is a temple devoted to one of the minor deities of the Mimbonites that the locals racistly call Greenies, that has a gemstone in it called the Kyber crystal. It is a singular thing.
Yeah.
And she knows, because she has a piece of it that she bartered off of a local, and she knows that when you touch it, it enhances your force abilities. And and Luke confirms this when he touches the crystal as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so she wants their help, going to go get the whole dang thing, and then she will help them steal a ship and get off Mimban.
Do you like Leia almost using the slur for these people when she says, "Does this even exist outside of the green Mimbonite stories?"
Yeah, and I guess, look, I like Leia using correct terminology to call people what they are, and the fact is, up to this point, she's only heard everyone call them greenies, which, like, okay, her realizing that, like, oh no, that is the racist slur that all these people are using.
But then I love simple doll.
I don't know how this character is supposed to read. I really don't.
It may be a woman, but I read it like a crotchety old man.
And the only reason I know this character is a woman is because of the novelization.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and it's drawn vaguely feminine, right?
Very kind of like could go either way, which I do appreciate. It's just like
I actually thought the drawing of her looks like Ellen DeGeneres in an old lady wig.
I can see it.
But that's where I got that. So yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like leaning feminine, but yes, a little androgynous. Yeah. Simple doll, and then traded a greenie a whole bottle of tipples for it. I did. Once again, we are at peak gleep glop. Traded a greenie a whole bottle of tipples for this Kyber crystal.
I don't think we're gonna top Sir Carpusian xenoarchaeologist.
No, nothing ever will. It's from that. Yeah, that's where we hit it, and we're just coasting at peak gleep glop.
Two words back to back that are both double-digit words.
Yeah. The boy knows, don't you, lad? I just love all the boy, lady, doll.
I just want weirder nicknames, like, all right, lamb chop, let's do this.
Okay, honeybee, let's go. And yes, Luke touches it and oh.
Yeah. So Luke makes a ton of suppositions here in this next page as he says this splinter of who knows what increases one's perception of the Force. It magnifies and clarifies in proportion to its size. How does he fucking know that?
He touched it once and he knows everything about it.
Anyone in possession of the whole crystal could do just about anything.
Yes, so keep that piece for yourself, boy, and let's move out By touching the fragment, Luke here set up a tiny but perceptible stirring in the Force. I felt it, and so much the Force sensitives in the Imperial government. They'll come fast and hard. Okay, I have a lot of questions about the Force sensitives in the Imperial government.
Oh, you don't know about the Inquisitorius, John?
Well, I do, but they...
I know you do, but this comic doesn't, so yeah, I don't know what she's talking about.
Yeah. Wait a minute now. Yeah, you're alluding to things that are established many years later in canon, so... Well, what I love about this is like, it is that thing about picking up on creating the Inquisitors and stuff like that, right? It's like, I don't know. There's probably Force sensitive people in the Empire. We don't really know what that means yet, but we'll just toss it in here.
Mm-hmm. Which I appreciate, but yes, this comic has no idea. I mean, I guess they could be talking about like someone like Mara Jade, I guess, right?
Yeah, I mean, we have seen Force, of course, but like really, if you're reading this, especially 1978, well, and actually even 95, you're going like, is it just Vader? And maybe and of course the Emperor, but also like on this distant planet, this put out enough of a thing that like galaxies away, you know, star systems away, somebody's having a perception of this.
I mean, would be able look,
to track it anyway.
If Obi-Wan can sense the destruction of Alderaan, maybe this crystal is that big of a deal? Oh.
But Alderaan is a massive planet full of people being destroyed. That would have reverberate. It's look, once again, it's all gleep glop, so it can be whatever they want it to be. But I just think it's really interesting that it's like, he touched that thing, and now, you know, now we're in trouble.
Yeah, so now Luke is like, she's right, Leia. We can't take the risk that this crystal might fall into the Imperial hands. Let's go collect the droids and go.
They already have a bunch of it. It's all right. It's not that thing. So
this is Kyber. This is like Jabba the Hutt with one T to Kyber crystals, right? Like this is Kyber crystal, not Kyber crystals. You got to know the difference, John.
You want to talk about really out of character? This whole next bit of business with them in the mud. Holy God.
Yeah, and again, like in the novel, this was more of like a romantic thing, where it's just like, now we're even for getting slapped as they have a little bit of a mud wrestle.
All of it feels, we're in danger here. I don't think Leia would be doing this anyway, but even still, if she was doing it, this fits way more into the Han dynamic.
Yeah, 100%. And again, a lot of that is colored retrospectively for us, so it's hard for us to like
but it must be hard
this.
For them adapting this in 95 where they do have that retrospective.
Yeah.
And we know that they were trying to take steps to make this make more sense, but obviously not enough.
Not enough, because
now they're both, you two.
Yeah, a bunch of local head splitters. And Luke saying, now you look more like a servant girl. This is just not good.
And then, ladies and gentlemen, making his appearance into the Star Wars canon, Shaquille O'Neal.
I was going to say Luke Cage, but yeah.
No, it is specifically Shaq as the character Steel.
Yes.
Is this Star Wars' first instance of a do-rag?
The first that we've come across, but by no means can that be the case.
No, yeah, but it is like, it's so just like, big black guy.
Big black guy with the do-rag and the sleeves ripped off of his mining uniform.
How y'all doing tonight? Yeah.
Look, we're playing into some stereotypes here that are pretty uncomfortable, especially when he starts getting grabby with Leia.
Yeah, well, he just transferred here via Compton, so, you know. Good Lord. The hero of Harlem, folks. Jesus Christ, yeah. And then, boy, he's rolling with a weird crowd, though.
Yeah, look, this is a bunch of, like, surly miners and their leader straight out of a blaxploitation film.
Yeah,
and they're rolling up here, and they say, hey, it's against mining law to be fighting in the streets.
Yeah, we don't like that. Mine law says we got to apprehend lawbreakers. Come here and let me apprehend you. Ha, ha, ha. Sexual predator for fun.
Yeah, but thankfully, Luke comes in with a karate chop.
A karate chop right to his wrist. It's such a weird whoosh. And look at that. He's really hitting him. Look at that explosion of impact.
Yeah, I mean, it's enough that he releases Leia and then, like, has to grab his wrist, like, ow, karate chop.
Yeah. Force chop. Yeah, so there they go. And then here comes Hala to pick up the droids. Hey, you droids, you'd better come with me.
Too bad about those kids. I was just starting to get to like them. I hope they get a decent burial. As she takes the droids and leaves.
Yeah, my droids now. And then for some reason, when we turn the page, this guy's now Wolverine.
He's also X-23 because he's got knife boots.
That's right. He is. He's got the two claws and he's got the blades on his feet. Good Lord.
Yeah.
Maybe with the Weapon X program. This is a Marvel comic. So.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't at the time.
Yeah.
Because Leia's shouting, "Look out, Luke! Look out for what?"
All the blades.
All of it. All of it, I guess.
Like this insane man we've met.
My point is just like, does Luke not know to look out?
Yeah. For what? Oh. And I do like that he's just leading with a kick. He's not leading with blades on the feet. He's leading with just a kick. He's not looking to kill, I guess.
Or maybe Luke's dodging out of the way. It's tough to say.
Yeah. Let's you and me dance.
Yeah, as we get a big action pose here, and that's the end of the issue. Like right there, it just ends there.
Oh shit! Will Luke be okay, man? He's fighting a Weapon X-ified Luke Cage. This is rough business.
Look, they've clearly found themselves in Marvel Comics Canada, the most dangerous place in the world.
Oh, I love Marvel Canada, man. There's always some weird government conspiracy to make super weapons. I love it.
Or Wendigos. You got to watch out for those Wendigos.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You go out into the woods and then you got Wendigos. So, jeez.
So yeah, that was issue number 1 of Splinter of the Mind's Eye. So far, not great.
No, it's not. It's a fun snapshot, but also like, thank God we didn't get the Star Wars sequel. I still think even if they had adapted this as the Star Wars sequel, the script probably would have been more polished up.
And Carrie Fisher would be taking an axe to some of this dialogue.
Well, I mean, I hope Carrie Fisher never read this book because Jesus, she would just be infuriated.
I would love to see her notes on Splinter of the Mind's Eye.
Just the whole cover page just says no. I think not.
I do not think so, sir.
Yeah, and it's like, it's one thing, as we've talked about, of course, this was written when they only have the first movie, but even by the first movie standards, this is some massive off-brand character.
Yeah, no, it's not good.
Yeah.
But here's hoping the book improves. It's not going to, but here's hoping.
We already know that it hasn't. But we hope you enjoy us talking about it. And of course, if you want more of us talking and all the shows on the Punch Up Entertainment Network, as mentioned before, we do have a Patreon page, which is patron.podbean.com/punchup. Once again, that's patron.podbean.com/punchup. The URL for that is also in the description below. So make sure you head over there for cool exclusive bonus content and helping out the network.
Indeed. And if you want the best way to ingest this show, or an alternate way of ingesting all of the shows in the Punch Up Entertainment Network, join us on our YouTube page, youtube.com/punchupentertainment. There you can watch this show and watch along as we read the comic, and you can see some of the stuff we're talking about as we describe it, because of course comics is a visual medium. There's only so much we can do with our pearlescent voices.
Well, I would like to tell that to the creators of this comic, that comics are a visual medium.
But while you're there, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. All of that really helps us out. Let us below, what was your first exposure to continuity that was already excised out of Star Wars by the time you were enjoying it?
Indeed. But yeah, I think that's going to wrap it up this week.
Indeed it will. And as always, may the panel be with you. Oh, wait. No. I say I've been Mike Gargoni.
And I'm John Campbell. Otherwise, who will they know who's talking?
You're right. May the panel be with you.